It was supposed to be a light-hearted interview, a quick exchange between President Donald Trump and a popular liberal TV host, a moment for some easy, post-election banter. But the atmosphere in the studio quickly turned tense when the host, known for his sharp tongue and even sharper political jabs, decided to poke the bear. Sitting behind a desk adorned with bright lights, the host flashed a mischievous grin as he leaned forward, eyes twinkling. The crowd could sense it coming, an uncomfortable but inevitable question. With Trump in the chair, you could almost hear the clock ticking before the situation would spiral into something far more explosive than anyone anticipated. "Mr. President," the host began, his voice dripping with a mix of curiosity and challenge. "You've had quite a few bold moves on the sports front. But one topic that keeps bubbling to the surface is transgender athletes. You've made some strong statements about it in the past. So, I have to ask, do you still stand by your stance on banning trans women from competing in women's sports?" The words hung in the air like a grenade. The crowd was silent, sensing the drama that was about to unfold. The moment was ripe for conflict, and this liberal TV host had just thrown the match. Trump, ever the showman, didn't flinch. He straightened in his chair, a slight smirk curling at the corners of his mouth. He'd been here before, many times. Facing off with the media was practically his second nature. "Of course, I stand by it," Trump said confidently, leaning into the question with his trademark bravado. "You know, we have to protect the integrity of women's sports. We can't allow it to become a free-for-all. Transgender women competing against biological women, it's just not fair to the girls who've worked their whole lives to get to the top." The host's face twisted with skepticism, clearly expecting the answer but not quite ready for the bluntness of it. "Fair? You're saying it's unfair for a trans woman, someone who's faced unimaginable struggles, to just want to compete?" The host's voice grew sharper, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. "We've seen so much change recently, shouldn't we be more inclusive? Or are we just protecting fragile egos here?" The challenge was out there now. The studio was still, as the host pushed further. "You've got the most powerful country in the world supporting you, and this is where you want to stand, fighting over who gets to run track. It seems almost petty, don't you think?" The host's words were meant to sting, and they did. The camera zoomed in on Trump, who, despite the liberal jab, stayed eerily calm. He was used to being the target of media attacks. But the host's attempt to corner him on such a sensitive topic was like striking a match next to a barrel of gasoline. "I think it's a question of fairness," Trump countered, his voice rising with authority. "And believe me, it's not just about sports. It's about what's best for our children. You can't just ignore the biological facts because someone feels differently. The science is clear." The host smirked, shaking his head. "The science, huh? How convenient. So, what do you say to all the athletes out there, the ones who've transitioned and found their place, who just want to compete, who feel they have every right to be who they are and show their skills?" "That's not the point," Trump shot back, the calm confidence in his voice now replaced with a hint of frustration. "The point is," the host cut him off, sensing the shift. "The point is, we've got a divided country, and you're throwing fuel on the fire over something that doesn't even need to be an issue. The real question is why we're so obsessed with putting people in boxes. If someone's qualified, why not let them compete?" Trump bristled. He'd been here before, with debates that seemed less about the issue and more about sensationalism. He wasn't about to let the media's baiting distract him from his position. "You want to talk about boxes?" Trump retorted, leaning forward slightly, his tone sharp. "This country is full of people trying to change what's been working for generations. If you think that people are just going to forget about biology, forget about what makes sense because of your political agenda, you're wrong." The host narrowed his eyes, sensing that his attempt to bait Trump had backfired. Trump wasn't flustered, and the TV host had just given the president the perfect opportunity to pivot, reaffirm his stance, and take control of the interview. There was a beat of silence. The host, momentarily taken aback by Trump's unyielding response, realized too late the true power of this situation. The audience in the studio began to murmur. Some were nodding, understanding the president's stance, while others were visibly uncomfortable, unsure how to feel about the confrontation. But one thing was clear: this wasn't just an ordinary debate. This was something far bigger, more personal, and far-reaching. The back and forth grew more intense. The liberal TV host, who had built his career on poking holes in conservative viewpoints, found himself in unfamiliar territory. He had underestimated Trump's resolve and, more importantly, the president's ability to stay composed while being relentlessly scrutinized. "You're playing into the hands of a culture war that doesn't need to be fought," the host pushed again, growing more desperate. "People are losing their jobs, families are being torn apart, and here we are debating who's allowed to play sports." Trump paused, letting the host's words settle before he responded. "Look, you want to talk about culture wars? Fine. But this isn't about attacking people. It's about doing what's right for our society. We need to focus on what works, not just what's popular or politically correct." The president's voice softened, but the words were loaded with conviction. The country needs strong leadership, and sometimes that means making tough decisions that might not please everyone. It's not always about being liked, it's about being right. The room grew still again as the host's posture slumped slightly. For all his bravado and sharp wit, he couldn't counter Trump's unflinching certainty. The reality was clear. Despite the media spin, the president had just deflected every jab and stood firm in his beliefs. And in doing so, he'd once again captured the audience's attention, leaving the host regretting his attempt to stir the pot. The interview wrapped up shortly after, but the damage had already been done. Social media exploded as both sides weighed in on the debate. Conservatives hailed Trump's unwavering stance as proof that he would not bend to the liberal agenda. Meanwhile, progressives expressed frustration, calling for more inclusivity in sports and condemning the president's refusal to evolve. But the TV host, known for his clever jabs, knew he'd underestimated Trump. His attempt to derail the president's position had only served to amplify it. The backlash from his own audience was swift and unforgiving. In the end, the confrontation was a reminder of just how much tension remained in the debate over transgender rights and the culture wars that continued to divide the nation. And though the host may have believed he had Trump on the ropes, it was clear the president had once again proven he was more than prepared to fight back, no matter the cost.